And gentlemen, if you would, let's look at 1929 versus 1932, 1933, where things really started to get ugly in this country. We are on a track right out of the chute in the first year of our depression that is going to make 1929 look like a warm-up act. Your comments?
Well, it just means government's going to hire a lot. Government's going to hire a lot more people. Everybody's going to be working for the government in a public-private partnership. Who do you think's going to build all those roads and bridges? Who's going to fix the infrastructure? Who's going to make all those wind farms? Who's going to install all those solar panels? Who's going to retrofit all those schools? Yes, we'll all work for the government. They'll pretend to pay, and we'll pretend to work.
Well, we'll have the Obama brown shirts out there.
Yep.
Doing all that work for us, working for the federal government, and he will he will cement his loyalty among his workers who he's hired, and he's also asking for an internal army, essentially, in case we get out of line. I think he's going to have a hard time with that one. But the statistics that John Williams comes forth with are very good. And John is an economist, actually. And we came up with relatively the same figures. And, you know, again, the whole thing is a lie. I'm looking at my numbers, 15.5% U6 intermediate unemployment. Figure will be 22 to 25% perhaps by the end of the year, and next year it should touch 30%, which will be equal to the last depression, and then it's going to get worse. And one of the reasons why is we had free trade, globalization, offshoring, and outsourcing, and the wherewithal is not there to rebuild industry. And so with that in mind, if Congress is unwilling to pass legislation implementing tariffs on goods and services, there's no way we can ever create any jobs. We'll become a third world country. And that's what these people want, and that's what they're planning, and that's why they did what they've done.
Yeah, but Bob, the model that you are using, your unemployment model, is it based on the current model that the government uses as opposed to the model that was used prior to 1929?
Yes. And the government used six figures, 13.75%. Mine's 15.5%. Long-term unemployment for the government is 16.5%. Mine's 18.75%. Short-term, I don't even bother with.
Well, here's some other things that we need to consider. Now, this government accounting on unemployment. Now, folks, you know that every time the news media gives you unemployment figures, they're saying roughly across the United States, yeah, we're at about 7% unemployment rate. And that is not true. Now, they do not count people that, and we're talking private businesses, family-owned businesses, who they support, whatever, going out of business. They're not talking about all the retail shops shutting down. Well, they are mentioning it, but we've got tens of thousands of people being laid off, and these are the stories that hit the news. Now, something to consider. And we're starting the week here, and thank you, John, for this. He said we're beginning the week here from last week's unemployment numbers, which officially are the worst seen in 25 years or more. I mentioned shadowstats.com reconstructs the pre-Clinton era method of calculation, which includes factors of the so-called official number of 7.6%. I guess that's where they're saying that it's at right now. Now, we're not talking about the discouraged workers and self-employed out of work, the people have quit looking for jobs. And this number maybe is large. Now, you ready for this, folks? First year of our Great Depression, maybe the greatest depression, but we may be actually looking at unemployment numbers right now at 18% here in the good old U.S. of A. 800-313-9443. We're going to open up the phone lines, folks. Speak if you got the courage. Email from a gentleman. I was talking about Barry Sartoro being in Indiana yesterday. A gentleman emails me. He says, I live about 10 minutes outside of Elkhart, South Bend. Yes, the RV industry is hard hit. I believe that Elkhart has been losing jobs at a rate of about 1,000 a week for the past 6 to 8 weeks. The number one solution, this man makes too much sense, is to lose all the illegals in this area. At a low side guess, I would say at least 40% of labor is done by Latinos, and everyone works more than 8 hours like dogs. Not once in a while, but these are normal shifts. I know these jobs need to be available first, but my idea that I wanted to get your opinion on is I think they should update this to double time, over 40 hours or even 8 hours. This will cause employers to hire more people at straight time, and I'm not sure if they get tax breaks for the number of employees they have. Overtime was at first meant as punishment to employers, paying time and a half. He said he's just basically Mike in Mishawaka. The illegals are leaving because there are no jobs, but not all of them. I do not know what Mr. Sartoro plans here and the Socialist Congress we have in right now, but I'm sure they're going to try to hang on to the illegals left in this country because that spells cheap labor in times where everybody is trying to cut cost. That's my take on the issue. George in Texas. Hello, George.
How you doing, gentlemen?
Hi.
Yes, when I listened to Barry Sartoro make his pitch for the stimulus package,
Yeah.
I could have swore I was hoping there was somebody with a shovel behind him.
Well, I was waiting for one of these deadheads out of Fort Myers, Florida, to actually say something of any value or worth, or at least ask a hard question. And there was none. There was a black woman that stood up in tears saying that she was basically out on the street. Barry gave her a hug and said, well, just hang in there. I mean, and people stood up, George, and applauded this. The good little socialist and don't understand anything about nothing stood up and applauded. And I thought, geez, is that what this woman gets? Is just a hand? She's looking for a handout is what she's looking for. She's looking for help. I am just, I was just blown away by this.
Well, I heard from Lindsey Williams yesterday that the USGS just said there was a big oil find up in Montana, and Congress is racing now just to try to say you can't drill there.
Well, and they're going to keep up the energy locked in. Look, these countries that we're buying this oil from, we owe them a hell of a lot of money to begin with because they've been buying our debt. If we're going to up and say to these people, well, it doesn't look like, even though we know you're trying to dump dollars and you want payment in gold or you want something that's a little bit surer than the failing U.S. dollar, what do you think is going to happen? They're going to maintain these contracts. They're going to maintain these supply lines. They can't cut them off. And all of this, I mean, we've heard this story before. We know the oil reserves in Alaska. We know the oil we have inside the United States. We know about the oil fields off of the coast here of the United States. This doesn't cut any ice with anybody. They're going to maintain their contracts and all the political rhetoric you're hearing, because they've been talking about it now for 40 years. You would think even an inept Congress could do something about it. They make no plans. There are no plans in the works to make us energy independent. What they're piling on us now is, yes, we got to go green. Barry was down there in Fort Myers. I heard him today talking about solar power. And, gee, do you know if you put up enough solar panels, if you got excess energy, you can actually sell it back to the grid? I mean, this is insanity. The time that we need the cheapest amount of energy for the absolute cheapest price, we're not going to get it.
No. And the thing is...
Well, I reported on that Balkan field 6 months ago. There's enough oil in the world to bury it.
We're
I mean,
choking in it.
there's no peak oil. Never has been.
Yeah. Demand is down, so the supply is not a problem anymore. If that was their argument about peak oil, demand is way down.
We got peak gold. That's what we got.
Well, like I say, John, the solution is the states.
It is exactly that, and I'm sitting here looking at my watch, waiting for Ron Paul to say that this is his last term in Congress, and he's going to be going home, his adopted state of Texas, and that he's actually going to run for governor. That's what I'm waiting for, because I don't know, it should be even clear to Ron Paul and his optimism about staying on Capitol Hill and trying to make a difference up there.